you to the Cabinet meeting of Monday the 7th of September. It's just past 2 o'clock and we will start the meeting. It's obviously a remote meeting as normal. I've got apologies for absence as the first item. I thought that maybe Peter was a bit delayed, but I can see he's here now, so I think everybody's with us at the moment. So that's good. The next item on the agenda would be the minutes of the last meeting. And they are before you. They've been circulated in advance. Can I have your authority to approve them, please?
Yeah, formally second.
Okay, is that agreed?
Yeah.
Good, thank you very much. Then to receive any declarations of interest, if there are any from any member. I don't think there probably are.
No.
Good, okay. In that case, we will start the agenda proper. But before I do, I think it's right and proper that I should give a slight update to Cabinet members who may be not aware. But we have, over the weekend, had a positive case of COVID-19 in a child in the school in Dinas Powys. In some respects, it's not to be unexpected that we were going to have some cases somewhere. But what I want to assure everybody is that everything is in hand. The particular year group, that bubble, if you want, has been asked to self-isolate for the 14 days, and clearly that would include anybody who's been in contact with them. We have planned for this in cases of something coming back and resurrecting itself, because we keep on putting the same message out there. COVID-19 has not gone away. And unfortunately, if you look at some of the recent events, particularly in Wales, and locally, we have had some spikes, but and generally within those people within the 20 to 40, maybe a bit older category. It is a bit alarming, because what people need to realize is you are not immune. And if you are not immune, then you can pass it on to someone else. Now, luckily, in the past, we've been able to curtail it in terms of care homes, etc. But I noticed that in another neighbouring authority, they're considering closing down their care homes again, and they're considering having a lockdown. I hope it doesn't come to that. In terms of this one case, I'm happy that we've got plans in place. We are looking with our colleagues to test, trace and protect, so that we're doing the checks. We're in constant contact with the school. And if anybody's got any queries, then please phone up our offices and we can give you more advice. But this was not to be unexpected, but I just thought we should have an update at this time. I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comments at this stage. No. I think it's a case of be vigilant, be careful, stay safe, and remember, you can pass it on to someone else if you catch it. Okay, right, sorry about that. But a bit grim, I guess, in some respects, but it is reality. So come back to reality too. Next item on the agenda is the revenue monitoring period for the 1st of April to the 31st of July, which clearly covers those areas when we've had COVID-19, when we've been working from home, our offices have been working from home, but saying that, things have still continued to take place. Our services have still continued. This is basically a report which outlines the position with regards to the revenue budget for the period, as I said, the 1st of April to the 31st of July. And that takes into account the impacts of the pandemic on the council finances and the position with regards to achieving the agreed efficiencies of the current year. The revenue position for 2021 is challenging. It's bound to be challenging, and I think it will continue to be challenging, because I don't think COVID is going to go away as quickly as people think. And it's challenging with additional pressures on the council, both operationally and financially, as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. That impact is both as a result of incurring additional expenditure, because we have had to spend things on PPE, etc., etc. Also looking after our care sector employees and care sector staff and care sector residents. But it also covers a loss of income, and there's been substantial loss of income on things like, for example, we've shut down our car parks, we try to curtail people going to our Our leisure centre is closed. We try to curtail people as much as possible. Clearly, we're out of lockdown as such, but we still have to be careful, and we're still having losses of income. Saying that, we're also going to have additional expenditure incurring until, I think, the end of the financial year. We've been lucky in some respects in that funding has been provided by Welsh Government to cover some of these financial pressures. The funding has been made available to acknowledge both the increased costs and the lost income resulting from the pandemic. We make claims, make them on a monthly basis in arrears, obviously, for the expenditure, and that it can be shown at paragraph 2.2 in the report. And that actually details the grants that have been claimed for the period March to July. It also includes details of payments that have been received in relation to those claims. With regard to lost income, £1 million has been claimed, of which £935,000 has been received to date. In addition, the Council has also received other specific grant funding from Welsh Government to cover additional costs relating to COVID-19, which are detailed in the report, again at paragraph 2.6. These total £36.2 million. So we've had grants to that figure, £36.2 million to date. It's early in a financial year, and this year is going to be even more uncertainty than usual, particularly as the financial impact of coming out of lockdown is yet unknown. As I said, we've come slightly out of lockdown at the moment, but it looks like there could be another spike, and if that happens, then that's going to impact on us too. The unplanned use of reserves will be necessary in the short term and is currently projected at about, my phone always goes in the middle of this. Yes, folks, it's live. So sorry about that. Where was I? And I'm working from home, as you can guess, and it's gone again. So I'm going to take it off. I'm sorry, it's my brother-in-law. Okay, try again. The unplanned use of reserves will be necessary in the short term, as I said, and is currently projected at around £3.232 million. This is in addition to the already approved drawdown from the Council Fund during 2021 of £1 million. So we already planned to draw down 1 million, but we know that we're going to have to draw down even more. And again, that's covered within the report. The report details the position by service area based on current projections, which will change as the year develops, and further clarification on grant funding is received from Welsh Government. We are hoping that the grant funding will continue. We know that the grant funding will continue for the first quarter. Whether or not it continues at the same extent or at all is yet to be determined. Another impact of the pandemic is our impact on income, and there's been a 1.1% reduction in council tax collection for the period to the end of June, as compared to the same period last year. That actually equates to a loss of £1 million. So the position is being closely monitored. We are writing to people asking them if they're in a position to continue to pay. But indeed, one of the things we've also done is delayed some of the payments for those people who've requested it. So, as I say, it's been closely monitored, and as at the end of August, the reduction in collection has gone up by 1.2%, so it is still creeping up. To support households, as I said, repayment periods have been amended to either enter the 12-month period or 10-month period starting later than normal. This will, however, have an impact on the collection rate at the start of the financial year, and what the impact finally will be, we still don't know. Finally, when the revenue budget for 2020-21 was agreed, we did have efficiency savings of £247,000. We approved those. At the current time, it is anticipated that these will be met, but this will have to be closely monitored throughout the year. We are currently on track, but depends on what happens. We clearly need to be careful. In terms of the report, it makes recommendations. I don't intend to say any more than that. If any other cabinet member does, then fine. The recommendations of the report is that the position with regard to the authority's 2020-2021 revenue budget be noted. 2, that a virement of £290,000 is approved as a result of the transfer of responsibilities between the Additional Learning Needs and Wellbeing Service and the Standards and Provision Service held within the Learning and Skills Directorate. So that's basically a transfer of virement, so no increases. And finally, the Cabinet note the use of delegated authority by the Director of Learning Skills to via £100,000 from the delegated schools budget to the Additional Learning Needs and Wellbeing Service. Again, it's a virement, so it's not an increase in expenditure. I've gone on a little bit, including telephone calls. I don't know if any other Cabinet member wants to come in at this time.
Happy to second, Leader.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just check the bar. Okay. In that case, can we move on to the Capital Monitoring Report for the period 1st of April 2020 to 31st of July 2022. It's quite a complicated report in that there are lots of recommendations, but because lots of things have gone on, even though we're within the pandemic, things have continued to happen, particularly in terms of things like building on 21st century schools, for example. And I think we can come to that later. The report outlines the position with regards to the capital programme for the period April to July, taking into account the impact again of the pandemic and the ability of the Council to deliver the full programme. The delivery of the capital programme will be challenging this year due to the pandemic. Obviously, not everybody is in work. The other issue, of course, is that during some of the pandemic, some of the other suppliers weren't working. So even if we could get somebody to do a job, if the facilities or the materials wasn't available, then that curtails it. Early in April, it was agreed that the Council would not tender for capital schemes due to concerns regarding the availability of contractors. So obviously that had an impact. The reliability of their supply chains and their ability to meet agreed timescales was also considered, as I mentioned. This position was subsequently reviewed and services are now tendering for works to be completed. So we're back on track. This has enabled works to be successfully completed on school buildings over the summer period. And indeed, I know that, I don't know if anybody makes a comment about this, but earlier today, Cabinet members and I went to Whitmore High to see the development in practice. And what a superb job there is being done there. And it's going to be such a wonderful facility over a huge footprint. In terms of the report, going back to that, the report details the current position with regards to the capital programme and includes additions to the programme for the following reasons. Slippage of £13 million from 2019 to 2020, and that's included in the details of Appendix 1. Additions to the programme following receipt of a number of Welsh Government grants, and additionals to the programme through the use of Section 106 monies. The pandemic has had an impact, as I said, on the programme, and particularly in the housing services, and that has been reported that some works will have to be delayed to 2021-2022. We did have issues in terms of housing, in terms of our some bad weather conditions we had too. In terms of the report, Appendix 1 of the report contains a detail of the programme of the scheme and scheme by basis. I don't intend to say any more because there are a lot of recommendations. So the recommendations are that the Cabinet note the progress made on the 2020-21 capital programme, The Cabinet notes the use of the delegated authority as detailed in the report, and there are substantial details in terms of this, because the recommendations cover about 4 pages. So the second recommendation is the use of delegated authority. The third recommendation, Cabinet asked the Cabinet to note the use of emergency powers as detailed in the report. So in other words, they've already taken place, but we have to note them. That 4, the Cabinet recommend to Council that the Managing Director and the Head of Finance, in consultation with the Cabinet Member Performance and Resources, is given delegated authority to make additions, deletions or transfers to or from the capital programme in relation to the Capital Economic Regeneration Reserve. And 5, that the Cabinet approves the changes to the 2021 and future years capital programme as outlined in the report. As I say, the detail of the recommendations are covered in the report, and I'm not going to go through them because there are 4 pages. So I will leave it at that. I will move those recommendations. I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comment or possibly even second it. Liz.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, informally seconding it. I'd like to just make a couple of comments. I think that the flexibility that's been shown both by our officers and also contractors in delivering the upgrades to the schools over the school holidays has been absolutely outstanding, to be able to get those up and done so that there was no slippage. But as you mentioned, our visit to Whitmore High School today demonstrated the huge developments that have been ongoing. From our vantage point in Whitmore, we were able to overlook some of the developments at Brough that were only handed over a couple of weeks ago in time for the new term, which included their new 3G pitch and a bus drop-off thing, so that they could enter the site from Port Road, which was going to be a major improvement. But I don't think we can ignore the fact that by the way that they have so responsibly adopted social distancing practices, they were able to keep working throughout the pandemic, safeguarding 140 good quality jobs, the majority of which are from our local communities. Their work also supported supply chains locally. So we are still on track to open next September, and we are still on budget with that school. So again, huge thanks to our officers, some of whom were repurposing and doing other jobs in the council at the same time, but also to the contractors who've also helped to develop the app for us so that children in our other schools attend schools safely, and for doing the work within the development. So no, a really enjoyable hour spent at Whitmore today.
Indeed it was. And everybody else can make any comment? I think it's interesting to look on the report on page 7, because that does give you a list of the 21st century band B powers. Okay, and I think my system is starting to play up. Ben wants to comment. Any comments? Do we approve the recommendation?
No, Ben.
Ben?
Yes, I think going on from your point about things haven't stopped whilst we're there, I think underlining that is what we've been able to continue to do, is demonstrated under what's being dealt with under delegated authority. It's going through that list. I've noticed a slight typo that I think we should alter before passing the recommendation, which is in the 3rd bullet point regarding Jenner Park primary water mains replacement. I think there's a missing K in the bullet points, as I'm sure we've hired more than £10 to the project. But with that amendment, I think it does underline just how much work's been going on, how involved we've all been in that decision-making process and in making sure that things are continuing to move along. This coupled with our forward work programme later on should underline how we're continuing to move forward on this. And I really enjoyed having looked around Whitmore High this morning and seeing the ongoing developments. And I can't wait to go back and see the next stage of it.
Okay, so are we all in favour of the recommendations? Can we move onwards? Yeah. Good.
With that K being put in.
Yeah, the K being put in. Okay. We'll pick. I think we'll pick that one up. Okay. Next item is the Welsh Language Standards Annual Monitoring Report 2019 to 20. This is an update report really of something that's already happened. During 2015, the Council was issued with a compliance notice by the Welsh Language Commission specifying which standards apply to the Council, and in order to achieve the 174 standards within the notice, the Council developed a comprehensive action plan. So we're going back to 2015. The Council was also required to produce a 5-year promotion strategy as part of that compliance process. What this report actually does is brings to the attention of the Cabinet and the Council's progress against the Welsh Language Standards. Welsh Language Standards Monitoring Report, which is at Appendix 1, and against the promotional strategy for the Vale Glamorgan, which is in Appendix 2 for 2019-20. The monitoring report and the promotion strategy updates summarise the main areas where progress has been made and provides annual updates as required by the Welsh Language Commissioner. I think the important part to realise here is that we, after sending our annual report, and it's already been done, so it's an update in terms of where we are or what we've already done. So Appendix 1 is the report itself, and Appendix 2 shows us what the strategy will be going forward. I think we're in a particularly good place in terms of this, so I don't think there's an issue, but it's something which has to be reported here, and therefore the recommendations before you are, it is recommended the Cabinet consider and approves the annual Welsh Monitoring Report for 2019-20, Appendix 1, which, as I say, has been updated anyway, and update on the Welsh Language Promotion Strategy, which is Appendix 2, and we do that in principle, subject to consideration by the Scrutiny Committee, Learning and Culture. So in other words, this will be going to the scrutiny for consideration, and if there's anything to come back, then we'll come back to us. The second point is that the Cabinet notes that the draft monitoring report for 1920 had been published by the required date of the 30th of June. So as I say, this is an update report on something which has already gone out. The third one is recommended the Cabinet refers this report and appendices to Scrutiny Committee, Lifelong Learning and Culture for that committee's consideration, and if endorsed by the committee, that the report be published. So in other words, if there are no issues at that Scrutiny Committee, then that the report can be published in full. If there are any issues, then clearly they will come back to us. I don't know if anybody's got any comments. I think it's fairly straightforward. It's a report that's gone out, and then it's a strategy of where we're going to, what we'll continue to do to meet the standards during the current financial year. Okay?
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed. For me second.
Okay. Next item is fairly straightforward too. It's the Cabinet Annual Strategy Forward Work Programme for September 2020 to April 2021, and the Cabinet Quarterly Work Programme July to September and October to December. This is basically seeking approval and any comments in respect to the reports affected by the COVID-19 pandemic for the quarter April to June. If you recall, some of the issues that we had to deal with during the pandemic when we didn't have meetings was we used some emergency procedures, but since then what we have done is brought things back on track. The report notes those reports that were considered by Cabinet in July, and also it seeks the Cabinet's approval of the updated Cabinet Quarterly Forward Work Programmes from July to September and October to December 2020, and that's in order to bring the work programmes back in line with the quarterly reporting requirements. And also to agree the annual strategy work programme from September 2020 to April 2021, with the resumption of meetings following the COVID-19 outbreak to bring reporting requirements back in line with for the remainder of 2020-2021. Basically, what happened was that during the COVID-19, we suspended meetings, we carried on business as normal, but we didn't have those reports to cabinets or to scrutiny committees or to council. but this shows we're back on track. But if you look at the appendices, then you can see everything that was classified for July has either been done or will be done by the next cabinet meeting on the 21st of September. So the recommendations are before you. I will read them out because we're online. One is to note the usual cabinet business has been affected by COVID-19 pandemic since the suspension of the meetings on the 23rd of March 2020. 2, to note that the suspension of the work programme due to COVID-19 affected cabinet considerations of any formal cabinet quarterly work programme for the period April to June 2020. 3, that the cabinet quarterly work programme for July to September 2020, which is Appendix 1, be endorsed, and reports considered at the meeting of the Cabinet in July also be noted. That 4, that the Cabinet quarterly work programme for October to December 2020 at Appendix 2 be endorsed, and at 5, that the annual strategic Cabinet work programme for the remainder of the current year 2020-2021, which is at Appendix 3, be agreed and uploaded to the Council's website. I don't know if anybody wants to make any comments. It's fairly straightforward in that it is a work programme which we're now commencing again since we've started our normal schedules, and it shows where we can, which reports are coming where. Although I do say there could be other reports which could come which are not necessarily on this work programme. So there are things that sometimes come through which are not planned in advance, but they have to come through in any case. Has anybody got any comments?
Nope, I'll formally second it.
Okay, is that agreed?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. In that case, I'll go forward to item agenda 8, which is the Strong Communities Grant Fund 2020 to 2025. And I think Deputy Leader, Council Member for Education and Regeneration will take this one.
Thank you, Leader. This report, which is in effect an update on progress made with the Strong Communities Grant Programme in the current year, and is brought here to seek approval for the award of funding to the first round of applications to the main grant fund this year. It's worth noting, though, that this grant fund was first brought to Cabinet back in April 2017, and it was devised as a way of streamlining grant support both to communities and to town and community councils, but also recognising the huge part that our communities play in the lives of the people around them. Since the grant fund was launched, grants totalling 781,000 have actually been handed out, and at the sort of last cabinet meeting before lockdown on the 23rd of March, we actually approved a new funding allocation for the next 5 years of £837,533. We also at that meeting introduced a simpler application process for small grants for those up to £3,000, which could be signed off under delegated powers with the Managing Director in consultation with yourself or Leader and Deputy Leader. Just a couple of points that I'd like to bring your attention to. In terms of Appendix A, that's the overview of all the funding that was given out on this occasion. It's worth noting that although we had about 119,000 in the pot, which was, a substantial amount, we actually had applications for 250,000. And so very difficult decisions had to be made, and there were a number of projects that we could not support this year. But there will be another round of funding, hopefully early in 2021, ready as soon as we're into a new financial year. Appendix B is the guidance that gives you the sort of background to how we allocate funding. And then Appendix D is those £3,000 grants that I mentioned about in terms of streamlining the process. But I'd also like to mention Appendix C, which we're not specifically approving this time. But these are the Vale Heroes crisis grants that we allocated to community groups that were undertaking activities specifically related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And just having a look at those 23 grants gives you an idea of some of the phenomenal work, the phenomenal effort that's been going on in our communities. Just to say that, say number 19, Cadoc's Corner, a summer holiday club doesn't actually do justice to the amazing work that they did right throughout the summer holidays across 4 primary schools and providing support for 3 weeks. Number 6, Vale for the Love of Scrubs group. They did scrubs for carers, but they did thousands of sets of scrubs. I can't go through it all, but I think that hopefully we'll be publicising some of those groups and individuals that did some amazing work during that. So it's all there in the report. A couple of little things that I just need to change or to amend in the report. Paragraph 211 on page 4, at the bottom of it, it actually talks about, delegated powers granted to the managing director in consultation with the leader. It's missed me out. It should be the leader and the deputy leader. So we'll add that in. Appendix A, where it says about Cowbridge Tennis Club, that actually is approval in part of £12,000 in 21-22. Just clarifying. And Appendix D, a slight slip in terms of adding up. The grant request total, which is outlined as 23,000 plus, should be £24,201.88. So that with those clarifications, the recommendations are that Cabinet approves grant funding of up to £219,260.79 and endorses the evaluation panel's recommendations as outlined in Appendix A, that Cabinet notes the content of this report and appendices B, C and D.
Okay. Any comments already, Ben?
Happy to formally second that, and I think it's been really fascinating to read through all the different projects that are going on, and I'm sure the evaluation panel had a very hard task to be able to decipher between and distribute these funds. So my thanks to them, my thanks to everyone who's applied, and I'd urge every group to continue to apply, and I'm sure we'll be able to help even more groups in the future. So I'm happy to formally second.
Okay, good. I think one of the things that is impressive, I think that's the right word, is Appendix C. It's the Vale Heroes crisis grant, which was set up very, very quickly to deal with the pandemic that we had, and to help everybody who could help everybody else to go forward. I think that just shows how quickly things moved during that time, even though we were in lockdown and not necessarily around our desks. So can I thank the team for that particularly? I think that was important. And all those in the Vale Heroes who have done such a grand job. I think we need to thank those two. Anyway, if there's nothing else from anybody, do we agree the recommendations and move to item 9, which is the Homes and Safe Communities, which is a disposal of a small parcel of housing land at Kerry Avenue in Roos, and there's some seeking our approval. Margaret, are you going to?
Thank you very much, Leader. As you can see, it's a report asking for us to consider this piece of land. It's not needed anymore. We cannot build on it. It's not big enough. So we would like it to go out to the open market if anybody is interested. So I'm asking you for your support and for this small piece of land. And the recommendations is 1 to 3, and it's straightforward. So I'm asking for your support.
I think that's pretty straightforward. It's not required by housing. It's not required by the rest of the authority. We've had some inquiries anyway, which is good, but we'd have to put it out to tender out to the open market. So in order to do that, we need that authority, and therefore recommendations 1 to 3 before you. We agree, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, other comments from anyone? Good, then we move on to item 10, which is the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission for Wales, the review of electoral arrangements for the county of the Vale of Glamorgan. So, Eddie, I think you're taking this one, please. The Cabinet Member for Legal and Regulatory and Planning Services.
I am, Leader. Thank you very much for that. Yes, the report is the Boundary Commission. So, the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission for Wales has a duty under the Section 29 of the Local Government Democracy Wales Act 2013 to review the electoral arrangements for each principal area at least once every 10 years. Commission commenced its review in the Vale of Glamorgan Council on 8th of May 2019, and the Council provided comments on the Commission's proposals as part of stage 1 of the review by 30th of July 2019. As part of stage 2 of the review, the Commission published draft proposals, and the report was attached as a link to this report, and was seeking the views on the proposed electoral arrangements detailed from this report, and they want us to reply back by the 20th of October 2020. The report outlines the Commission's draft proposals for consideration, and it's set out in paragraph 2.4. Basically, it covers over things such as number of members for the area of Vale, number of type of boundaries of wards, number of members for each ward, and the name of the ward, and including any Welsh names. Okay, let's just go through. Going through reports. As you can imagine, there's been quite a lot of dialogue regarding the membership of the wards and the sizes, and on a whole, I think there's certainly been a dialogue between the returning officer, members of the council, and group leaders. So as it stands now, we've got some considerable wards that stay the same, but there are some that change from 2 to 3 member wards, and just to keep the number of electors per ward member the same. So the report 2.4 goes down to a considerable area. I just need to point out that I've had an email from Councillor Johnson, who wants to note that Dinas Powers, the proposal is for a reduction of members from 4 to 3. By all means, that's noted, but also he did say about that he wasn't happy with the electoral, the fact that we wanted to use emergency powers. I just want to clarify, saying that those emergency powers are only for the scrutiny committee. The Councillor Johnson will have an opportunity to bring this to the full council, because it will come on to full council at 21st September. So you'll be able to raise this issue there. But apart from that, generally, as I said previously to that email arriving to me today, I was under the understanding that most members were content with the proposals, excepting that, you know, there's been some consideration, particularly in the Wenbo area, some of the smaller communities, trying to bring them together, particularly if there's an underrepresentation in one area and an overrepresentation in another. The council have taken some time on trying to sort out, but all that happens is if we change the current areas that are now, it'll just move the problem to somewhere else. So on the whole, I just want to say that considerable work's been done. We accept most of the proposals, so I'll just go to the recommendations. The Cabinet recommends to the Council that the Local Democracy and Boundary Commission's proposals for the Vale of Glamorgan's electoral arrangements, as detailed in its February 2020 draft proposals report, be accepted, save for the proposal related to Cornerswell and Landock electoral wards, which in paragraph 2.7 of this report suggests that they should be kept as 2 separate electoral wards, and that's due to locality and connections. But in advance of the council meeting on 21st September 2020, the electoral registration officer's recommendation for the names of the proposed electoral wards, as detailed in paragraph 2.8 of this report, is circulated to members for their comments and subject to any amendments made by the Cabinet. That this report, together with the Cabinet's comments and respective recommendation to above, be referred to the Council for consideration on the 21st September 2020, and that the urgent decision procedure paragraph 14.14.2 of the Council Constitution refers applies to this report. I'm hoping that I've given it justice. The report has been given to everybody to see, and there's been quite a considerable amount of work. I ask that those recommendations be accepted.
Okay. Ben, can I bring you in?
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to formally second that, and I think in noting particularly those recommendations and referring back to what Eddie was referring to before in terms of representations that have been made, recommendation 4 clearly says the urgent decision procedure has been implemented in order that Council can fully consider this on the 21st September and that we can meet that deadline. And of course, every member can continue to plead their case to the Boundary Commission directly as well. There's no emergency powers here. This is going through the full democratic process of the Council, and this is to protect its ability to be through the full Council meeting prior to going to it. And with that included, and fully supportive of our Council's recommendations not to merge Llandoch and Cornerswell. With those in mind, I formally second the recommendations.
Thank you, Ben. I was going to just raise that issue too, in terms of reason for Llandoch is because that's seen as a distinct community in itself, and it's technically outside the boundary of Penarth Town Council area anyway. Yeah. And in terms of Councillor Johnson's request that this powers be changed, retained as 4, we note the comments, but we also, as Ben said, the reason for the urgency procedure is so that we can get this to the Commission in time. So it will go to Council. It's a Council decision. If anybody wants to make any arguments or discussions or debate, that's the place for them to do it. Okay, is there any other?
And I look forward to that debate on the 21st.
Indeed. Okay, well, you've got the recommendations before you. We noted the supplementary report or the email that came in from Councillor Johnson with that. We all agreed?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's move forward to item 11. Which is Health and Living and Social Care, the Care Inspectorate Wales, CIW Local Authority Performance Review 2019 to March 2020, and the Cabinet Member Social Care and Health. Ben, it's your report.
Thank you, Leader. Care Inspectorate Wales publish an annual letter for social services outlining their assessment of the service based on inspection and other activities throughout the year. The letter is attached as an appendix to this report for everyone to see. And this letter highlights many strengths of the service whilst also providing suggested areas for improvement. There are particular comments in there with regards to management of the service, and reference is made to COVID-19 as the culmination of the year noted, included when we began entering into lockdown and all the different measures. I did want, in terms of where it refers to areas for improvement, I did particularly want to note, for the purposes of Cabinet, the paragraph that states the Welsh Community Care Information System, codename WCIS, has not yet been adopted by Cardiff Vale University Health Board. This is something which is a particular concern for me. It's something which I am unhappy about, because I do feel that until we have a proper joined up system, there's always the risk that things can get lost between two sets of services, which is noted in here. There appears to be, to quote again from the letter, there is no time frame set for this to take place. Strategic decision making is required by Cardiff Vale University Health Board to address this issue. This is a Welsh Government scheme, one the Vale has signed up to and is part of, and really is going to be a foundation for improving that link up we always talk about between social care and health. and I wanted to use this opportunity to highlight what Care Inspectorate Wales are saying about the inability for those systems to work closely together. I will note, though, that they did say at the end of this paragraph, during our focus activity in adult services, we saw many examples of positive information sharing between social care and health, despite these lack of a joined-up system that promoted best outcomes for people. So I think we can rest assured, based on what Care Inspectorate Wales are saying, that there are systems in place that are looking after the best interests of our residents, but there's clearly an area for improvement. The performance review will be incorporated into the annual director's report for the same period and will inform the priorities for the service highlighted in the document, which will come back to Cabinet for approval in the coming months. So moving on to the recommendations, it's simply that Cabinet notes the contents of the performance review, and as we would normally have had this shared via a scrutiny committee earlier in the year, a copy of this performance review will be sent to members of the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, and of course, if they wish to speak to that further, then that's within their purview. But mostly this is something we get annually. It's really encouraging to see the hard work that's gone on. I've already placed on record at previous Cabinet meetings just how amazing it's been to see the togetherness and the hard work during the pandemic right across the care system and throughout social services. And I think the foundations for that management are detailed here in this Care Inspectorate Wales letter. So I'd move the recommendations that Cabinet notes this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we should echo the fact that during COVID-19, everybody has had to work together, and there's been good partnership arrangements. So, and I think that's reflected in some of the things we've seen in terms of cases that have been dealt with either quickly or not after done anything at all, because we have been fairly stable in this area, thankfully, and I hope that will continue. Okay.
I'll second that. Can I second that? Thank you.
You can. And do we all agree?
Yeah.
Thank you. In that case, move to item 12, which are any items that I have as urgent. Under part 1, I have none. And similarly, under 13, urgent items under part 2, I have none. So can I thank you for your forbearance, for putting up with my interruption. I hope to see you again in a little time, not too soon, not too late. We'll join together again at the next Cabinet meeting. In the meantime, thank you, stay safe. Au revoir, as they say.